This is Between Hooksets. I'm Chasen Walter from In Through the Outdoors with my partner in slime, Kurt Underhill from the Fishing Crew.
How we doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm the Fishing Crew tonight, and you are
JB Designs.
JB Designs. All right.
Yeah.
You're
Josh gave me a hat.
So you're selling rods tonight. That's good. I like that.
Josh gave me a hat and said I'd probably never wear it, so I had to wear it tonight.
Perfect. Is it a gray hat or tan? It's gray, I'm guessing.
Gray with purple. Yep.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. That does you well. You go right ahead and do that. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about our guest tonight. I think we promised ourselves we wouldn't sit and over chat about this, that, and the other thing, or very little. But I've honestly been thinking about having Dave on for quite some time, and tonight's the perfect night as we're heading into the Gov Cup in South Dakota to have Dave on. He's a 4-time winner, and I'm excited. I think he's gonna tell us a lot. He might even teach us a fair amount. So I'm pretty excited and ready to throw Dave on and get to it.
Absolutely. I'll bring him in here. How are we doing tonight, Dave?
Oh, great.
So for those who don't know, Dave Spaid has been guiding, he just told me 37 years and tournament fishing and all things outdoors. I mean, that's been your life for your whole life, but 37 years full time, right?
Well, mostly full time. Yeah,
yeah, that's pretty awesome.
The business is there.
So Dave has fished Gov Cup. He won 4 of them back. I mean, 90, 94, 96, and 2001. 2000. Yeah, I say, yeah. And, I heard a podcast you sent me earlier this year. You're kind of the brains behind Slow Death Hooks. And now I heard a podcast how, they said you won $100,000 and you started out like telling me that $100,000 wasn't the story got stretched over the years, but you won the Gov Cup with the Slow Death hook before it really became popular. And before the show, you're kind of talking about Slow Death.
The one that came up with the word Slow Death.
Okay, I've always wondered why that name.
Well, I guess it would have to do with the speed of the presentation. We started using spinners and bottom bouncers like everyone, and that was the prime deal for fishing. And when the spinners wouldn't work, we would cut off the spinners and tie a loop on it, leave maybe a bead, and use a 2-hook crawler. But even after August came, that wasn't even working. So we had to come up with something else. So we did a lot of salmon fishing those days back in the middle 80s. And we were using herring. And herring had a bead chain and was a spinning technique, and it worked good. I said, well, why can't we find something to work with that? So my partner and I at the time tried to put 2 crawlers on the 2-hook rig, 2 small crawler. We tried just some different kind of hooks and really couldn't get anything going. And I just went down to the store, and there was some True Turn hooks there, and I picked up a pack. And we knew that we needed to use fine wire hooks. The reason why I use fine wire hooks are not that strong, but when you get hung up on rocks and stuff like that, you can quickly bend them back to where they need to be and carry on. So we went with the number 2, and it had a little bend to the thing. It's actually a panfish hook.
Okay.
So, and we kind of monkeyed around with it and came up with a bend at the shank. And cut the crawlers. Of course, we were cutting crawlers anyway.
Yeah,
with stuff. We like the fish to hit the spinner and 2 hooks and everything all at the same time, so we cut them pretty close. So a lot of times they hit the spinners stuff, but that wasn't working. It was too speedy of a presentation, and we needed to stick it in their face and kind of just let it go. And having that lightweight hook helped keep it off the bottom too. So we were probably going speeds of a half a mile an hour or something like that. Or we would go a little bit faster once in a while, make it turn a couple turns and then slow down, experimenting with it. But it worked right away. We just decided to get in the Governor's Cup. So we didn't have any business. So, well, let's, we got in at the last minute, I guess. So, but then it was the MWC and the Governor's Cup.
So
there was MWC. 230 teams in it or something. So,
yeah, that was the year the MWC teamed up with the Gov Cup, and and that was mid 80s. Yeah, and nobody else was probably pulling slow death at that time. You guys were,
I don't know what, people were using minnows and rigs and stuff like that. We didn't have access to chubs and those types of things.
Yeah,
so we just used what we know that works.
I mean, it's a tactic that to this day is like tied up. If I put a bottom monster down, there's at least one slow death hook in my arsenal, and it works, and it's produced fish a lot. And it's such a crazy thing how these tactics come about and how we find, we got to change something. We've got to pop something different. They're not quite hitting the way we want to. And to hear that, I mean, you got a whole new technique that is a craze. And I took some guys from work. They don't fish much a couple weeks ago. And I'm like, put these on. They're like, what's wrong with this hook? I said, there's nothing wrong with that hook. This is how you do it. Put it in the water. And they're like, what the heck? And I mean, they don't fish much. So they had no idea. So there's still people that, that are not big fishermen that don't know what a slow death hook is. And I think a lot of people that buy them don't know how to rig them. If, a lot of guys do, but the people that are new to it don't really know that you got to thread it on and have it churn in the certain ways. And what a tactic. But, you've seen this body of water. You've been around Pierre for, guiding and doing all this stuff for a lot of years. And we get to all the different tactics. And would you say slow death was kind of the game changer, or is it just that works and then we go to the next thing? Or
well, I think it's for South Dakota and the West here and other states, it's probably bigger than a Lindy rig.
Yeah, I mean, we Lindy rig. Yeah, I mean, that's what we did.
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden the slow death came out, and I don't know if my dad bought another Lindy rig.
Well,
it's easier to use.
Grass and everything that we fish through and rubble and stuff. The bottom bouncer just keeps the rig up.
Yeah.
But there's two things going on with that rig. Not only does it spin when you pull it slow, sometimes we use air a little bit to make it even float better.
So you're like air in the crawler?
Yep. Okay. Sometimes if we're fishing tournaments, we might, but if we're guiding, we don't have time to do that and stuff. And we go a little bit faster, so the fish pull a little harder on it when we're guiding too. But we use bottom bouncers. A lot of people don't understand that it's the bang of the bottom bouncer or the tick of the wire on the bottom bouncer that sends a signal across the water bottom that the fish's lateral lines pick that up, and that's the start of the whole thing.
And that's very evident on forward-facing sonar.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know much about that, but
he earlier this year, Chasen went out on a small lake in Minnesota and turned his forward-facing backwards, and we were talking. He's like, they keep hitting the bottom bouncer. They keep hitting the bottom bouncer.
That's exactly right.
The fish kept hitting the bottom bouncer. So. Yeah. And that I never thought that of like, that's what's causing the vibration in the water, because
you just pull a bottom bouncer with slow death and leave it 2 feet off the bottom, see how many fish you catch. It doesn't happen very much.
Yeah.
It's the commotion that does it. Fish are instinct, and when they hear that wire down there scratching or making a sound, they're curious, so they come over there to see what's going on. And that's what I've learned from a lot of years of fishing.
I mean, there's not many more that have had as many days and many years on the water as you. And it's 4-time Gov Cup. I mean, that up until,
well, yeah,
I mean, that was something that you held for, I mean, you did it in the early days and nobody even came close until this guy named McCumsey decided to come along.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We're good friends,
and now he's got 5, but I mean, I remember talking to you when we were putting the list together and you're like, I called you up and I said, how many you got? And you're like, 4. And I'm like, what? And he goes, yeah. You go, I'm done. I don't need to fish anymore. I might if somebody beats me gets some more than me. But yeah, I mean, 4 times in the 90s, in the early 2000s. I mean, them days were way different than what we're looking at today in tactics, in boats, in everything.
Yeah, well, we didn't have GPS. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
We carried around the Corps of Engineers maps to navigate where we wanted to fish. And we made plastic copies of them and things like that, had them in the boat and tried to do what we could, because that's what we did a lot at night too, was study where we might want to take a look and see, where the fish may be according to their depth.
Well, I remember growing up that point with that tree, right? That's how you got to your spot.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was all look over here, look over there, but
you really had to use your eyes because you'd look at a bluff or you'd look at the lay of the land and you'd see how it would come down and how the point would come down into the water. And for the most part, you could figure that stuff out. Did you back then on the river, did you use the Hilux bottle or the buoys or anything to mark points or fishing spots?
You bet.
Oh, the old marker buoys. Yeah. My neighbor was cleaning his boat out the other day and I go, oh, you got a couple marker buoys. He goes, I didn't even know those were up in there.
Yeah.
He goes, I call them Minnesota fish tractors. You just throw it out on a point you're not on and watch all the guys drive over to it.
Well, if you're worried about that, you just put a marker buoy or a pop bottle out there that doesn't have rope on it.
Yeah, right.
I saw duck decoys. I've seen all kinds of stuff in the boat.
Seagulls. That was big. Yeah.
So, all the years on the water doing all these different things, do you have like a notable memory out there? Like what's one of your, I mean, you've got thousands of, I can't even begin to ask what one of your favorite memories on the body of water or out hunting.
A lot of memories, of different things. I quit fishing tournaments probably 2010 or 11. Not that I didn't enjoy them, but I was just had my own tournament every day with myself and my customers, and I enjoy helping people, to fish, especially younger kids and things like that. And, to give them a little instruction here and there and get them pulling on the rod and reeling in fish makes my day.
Oh, that's some of the best excitement. Yeah. I mean, you have that guy in your boat that's been there 100 times, but that one person, they may be 80 years old that have never caught a fish. But that first fish memories is some of the best memories you can make with people. And it's so much fun. And, we have that Lieutenant Governor's Cup, the first kids fishing tournament during the Governor's Cup this year. And I can't wait for the 50th, but I'm super excited for that. I mean, we just got a big load of stuff in from Shields. We got a big load of stuff in from Precision Fishing today. It is going to be awesome for those kids. And that's what it's really all about, right? Yeah. It's not about, the trophy's awesome. The guy who wins the Gov Cup, chasing a guy like you with 4 of them, that's a memory to have.
Well, you had to have 4 extremely good 2 days.
Yeah.
And one thing I can tell other anglers about coming up here for the 50th is it's anybody's game. This tournament on this reservoir, the reservoirs fluctuate all the time. So it's a matter of whether you can figure out what depth of comfort the walleye are in. And it could be 13 foot in June and 16 foot here by the Governor's Cup.
Yeah.
Or vice versa or whatever. So things change. You have to do your homework. So anybody could really have a great chance of doing well in this tournament.
So you say that. And like right now, I mean, the lake is on the rise. You know, the lake is coming up. It's come up a couple feet in the last couple weeks. I've got an app on my phone. I've had a dozen phone calls with people in the last couple of days, and every time I look at it, it just seems to be ticking higher. You know, and they're not. Some guy told me today they're letting in 40,000 cubic feet and letting out 10. So the lake is on the rise. We've had, we've had a good amount of rain. Nothing like Southeast South Dakota, but we've had a good amount of rain, and there's plenty of runoff that happens coming from North Dakota and Montana and that we haven't even seen yet because those reservoirs are way down. You know,
well, it's anybody's game this year.
Yeah.
It's not like they're just stacked and easy to catch. They're making different moves and different forage is amazing this year.
Yeah. Well, you know, I was out last weekend and I was only seeing 70-degree water temp. That's the best I found. That was on the main channel. I was in the back of a creek. We had our trash tournament and we were in the back of a creek and it was only 66 degrees and 4 foot of water. I can't remember the last time the 4th of July weekend, the water was that cold. So I think it's going to change. The heat turned on, you know.
Yeah, it's going to change. All right. But you've got some fish that are biting and then there's some that don't bite.
Yeah.
And if you're lucky enough to find some to start with.
Yeah.
And every day it seems to be changing a little bit. But they're not really that hungry this year.
There is plenty of forage.
Even with slow death or any other situation. I don't really know if it really matters what you're using.
Yeah.
As long as it's got some live bait on it. I'm a fan of live bait. That's just the way it is.
Well, inventing the slow death hook, you have to be.
Yeah.
I mean,
we did catch fish with, artificials with slow death too when they're biting.
Gulp crawlers, when the fish are on.
Yeah,
when
we
they're
did
feeding
real well with gulp crawlers and actually it was the 4-inch watermelon pearl that was the one. I think it's a 4-inch crawler, isn't it? Gulp crawler.
Nice.
Yeah. You're thinking of the pinch crawler, aren't you?
Yeah.
The Berkeley pinch. What's a little 2-inch or inch and a half?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And they thread on these things real easy. And of course they stay on a whole lot better.
Yeah. Yeah. We were having a little trouble with them getting destroyed and stuff like that. But whether you're using that or whatever, when I'm guiding, it's just easier to put a plain old worm on and
just something about real meat, right?
Yeah. Plain old half a crawler, straight like a golf pencil. And, go on your way.
I find it super interesting because I'll go out with guys and we get a bunch of guys that'll come out and you got some that just don't get it. They're not going to thread that crawler all the way up to the eyelet, or I'll even take the head of that and go right up over the top of the eyelet. It seems to hold on better, but you'll have guys that'll just hook it 3 or 4 times and you'll just have this big mess of crawler back here and they'll catch more fish than the guy that took time threading it onto the slow death. It's spinning.
The slow death technique is it works for itself, but there's lots of ways you can catch fish. It's not the only way.
No.
So
some of the guides around here, they use a small hook and just put a little chunk of worm on it and that's all they go, and they catch as much as we do. But
I remember back in the day, Bob Prop Sr., when he was working, after he got done, retired out of the industry, but he's like, when I was with Lindy, they got so mad at me because my go-to is a gold Aberdeen hook and a split shot. Yeah. He's like, they want me to sell tackle. I'm like, it doesn't work. This works.
Yeah. Well, I think Bob was on the right track.
He's like, this works. They're floating jigs, whatever. This works.
Yeah. Well, it works for you and you have confidence in it. That makes a lot of difference.
And I'm a firm believer in the confidence in a bait.
Exactly. It could be any technique.
That confidence has been one thing that has scared me about the slow death hook. And you and I talked about it a couple of years ago. You did episode 307 and 308. I'm on episode 863, so it was quite a while ago. But I had said to you when we were talking on the phone, I said they scare me because that little light wire hook, they bend.
Yep.
And you said if they're bending, that's not the hook, that's on you. So explain that a little bit without giving away the farm there.
Well, when you got a fish on, it's angling that gets the fish in the boat. It's not the strength of the hook. It's not the strength of the line. If that breaks, it's your fault. You've horsed it too much. You should be gentle with those big girls and bring them up nicely. And
well, you could ask McCumsey on how angling. He caught a like 80-pound paddlefish on 12-pound pest slasher in the Gov Cup.
Yeah, well, he knows how to handle it, and I try to teach my clients a little bit about rods and try and keep it in your rod, whatever direction it's pointed, to a 90-degree angle of your line.
Yep.
You know, every day we have people get a little tired and they start pointing their fishing pole down the back. And then when they get one on, and there's the slack, off she goes. Your rod, you learn it in fly fishing too. And I do a little bit of fly fishing fun. I'm not great at it, but you know, you learn how to handle things with your rod. The bending of your stick takes out the cushion so that you can get those big girls in. And I'm getting a little bit old and slow, so I don't get back there very fast with the net. So I got to tell my customers that, hey, hold that fish on with your rod bent and keep it in under the water like a dog on a leash, a short leash.
There you go. That's
and
a
just
good way
let
to put
them
it.
run around and don't lift them out of the water or do anything. And sometimes I get a fish on there and I'll just hold it for 2 minutes just under the water so they can see that this tension is what you want to do.
Yeah.
Obviously a bigger fish anyway. Some of the small ones, of course, we left them in. But
that's a good point. Right, like if you keep that bow in it, you know, it's kind of like the shock absorber on your truck.
Exactly.
If you drive down the gravel road with none,
you're spending all this kind of money on all these expensive rods and things, and you've got to use them.
You got to use them
worth.
Exactly. That's a great point. That's an awesome point you bring up. But you know, that light wire hook is not a big. That doesn't scare me, you know. And I never even thought that would scare me, because I was always taught let drag work, let the rod bend and take care of it. So we got a Johnny Candle says, Johnny Candle. To see you, Dave. It's been a while.
Oh, hello, Johnny.
Good to have you there, Johnny. Thank you.
So
it's a scary little hook, and it really comes down to keeping the fish in the water. I have learned that over the last couple of years, because I'm a novice. I'm a horser. I want to get the thing in as quickly as possible. Now I found if I play with it a little bit, play it out, get it a little tired, keep it in the water, and then net it in the water, things work a lot better. And I do have more confidence in the slow death hook. So, you're the one that piqued my interest that day when you said it was on me, and I figured it was on me and not on the hook. But it's an interesting tactic.
You probably should let the fish do the hook setting for you. Let the fish run and let the fish, when you fly fish, that's what happens there, of course. So it's kind of in the same deal. You let the fish set its own hook when it takes off. That's what I do. I don't get jerky with them. And a lot of times, sometimes if walleye will come up there and he'll just tap it like a little perch, and you would be surprised how big they are.
Yeah.
Coming up there and try and kill fish in Minnesota, they use leeches. Leeches are hard to kill. Fish go up and bite the leeches, and then that's why they use the Lindy rigs. They let it slip and they let the fish take the leech down and eventually chew on it, and off it goes. You kind of got the same situation here. Sometimes they don't know what that is, and they're kind of full. They'll come up there and just pop it a couple times, and you'll see the gut mark in the thing, and you go, well, it's not there. So you continue on, and pretty soon another pop, and then all of a sudden, bang, he's got it. When your rod tip bends down, he's going to take off left or right. You should let him go to the right or the left, because you're letting the fish turn a little bit. That way, when you're pulling forward on the hook, you're actually pulling the hook straight out of the fish's mouth towards you. But if you let the fish turn left or right with that hook first, you get a lot better hook set. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think you're 100% correct. I don't know how many times he takes me pulling bottom bouncers for the first time, and they think they're setting a 20-pound bass. They're just going like this.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they're ripping. I'm like, just pick it up and pull it forward. You don't have to jerk it hard, guys. Just pick it up and pull it forward, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
You know. So that's right. I mean, that's a good point. Let the fish set itself, and that's what I'm gonna tell people in the boat is just let the fish set the hook itself.
Yeah,
it'll do it.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
And so
Dave, would you consider? I got into a conversation with a fella out at the river last weekend. We were talking about slow death, and he mentioned the fact that slow death it just didn't understand why fish would go after a worm or a leech that's spinning in a circle. It doesn't make sense. And I said, well, I honestly, it's a reaction bite more than it is a feeding bite. You're pissing them off, you're making them mad, you're doing something different. Would you agree that slow death is a reaction bite rather than a feeding type of bite?
I don't know if I clearly know what you're saying as far as the two, but yeah, I think a lot of your fish are reaction bite. Again, back to the bottom bouncer deal. That's all a reaction. A lot of those fish are just been sitting around, of course, all afternoon, and you come along, they're dragging along, and they're looking at it going, well, bang. I'd say a reaction bite would be mine. But sometimes they're really biting, and
yeah, right.
Probably have to say that'd be a feed and bite. There's no doubt about it.
We got another question. What's a good bottom bouncing rod?
I know. That's a nice cheap one. Yeah. I don't know if they make a good bottom bouncing rod, but I like to stick around 6.6 and medium action. Yep.
I was gonna say that's kind of what I run, medium action, and
those rods are a dime a dozen. Abu Garcia's Black Max, 6.6 medium action. Everything that I have for bouncing has that rod on it. I've tried other rods and I've been super uncomfortable. And I go to that 6.6. I've tried the 7.3, and it doesn't work for me. But here again, I'm a beginner kind of, a novice fisherman, but I'm comfortable and have the confidence with that 6.6 medium from the Abu Garcia, the Black Max. Plus, I think you can get them at the store for like $15. They're pretty cheap. And maybe Johnny Candle's got a suggestion for a decent bouncer rod too that he uses on Devil's Lake. So Johnny, if you've got an answer to that question, love to hear it. Let's talk a little bit about this article that Gord Pizer did. And this was a long time ago, going back all the way back to 2011. Talk about your conversation with Gord Pizer and doing this article.
I think it was basically when you and I talked, it was over the phone, and I gave him the tutorial of how we came up with it and all that stuff. So yeah, it was a long time ago. But I'm glad he's still having success with it.
Oh yeah. He's still busy with it, and he's fishing, I think, as much as he always has. So that's kind of neat.
Well, that's great. When I was reading his podcast or had that sent, it was about the mayfly hatch, and I'd have to agree with what he said on that. It shouldn't bother you whether the mayflies are hatching or not. As far as I know, we still have to go fishing, and we still catch them. So
yeah, it's the mosquitoes that kind of keep me out of the boat. I did the last 2 days. I'm not even going out. Forget it. I don't know if I'm a wussy or what, but I'm not into getting carried away.
You live in Mosquitoville over in the eastern part of the state. We don't get them as bad here. We get them dang biting flies.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So it's ridiculous.
Dave, how did you get into this? I mean, how did you become the tournament fisherman into the guide? Like, who is Dave? Where did you come from, and why?
I've always been a guide. I started at Spring Creek and working for Rick Ray and John Brox and Marlene Brox and Sean Brox now.
Yeah, Sean was a baby back then.
Sean was a baby, yeah. And we just started fishing, and I was the youngster of the guides. A lot of the guides are in their 80s now that are still around with us. So I don't know. just how everybody gets
the glory days.
Yeah.
You know,
and I had a seasonal business, you know, that I could do in the winter and spring. And then I had the time off to do the summer stuff. And my dad took me fishing like everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
You got to have people out there that would take you to get you interested in the sport. And that's how it really started, you know.
Yeah. And I'm not a guy by no means, but when somebody tells me they've never fished or they don't really fish much, I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
You know, let's go. You know, and I had a guy text me, hey, where can I catch my kids some fish? And I said, what do you want to catch? He's like, I don't care. He's little, just a tug on line. I said, let's go.
Yeah.
Well, tell me to go. I don't need to bug you. No, let's go. Because I want to be part of that memory. And, you know, selfishly, I guess I want to be part of it because I love that smile on that kid's face or that person that's never really caught one before.
Well, just that with our business is just what you said, because sometimes it's not the glory of going up on a wahi and fishing for 8 hours for 4 nice walleye and not even get anything with that amount of bait. You got to take them somewhere else. It doesn't matter whether you're in the river or West Bend or wherever. Take them to get some small fish, and you'll have a lot better result at the end of the day. And generally, you're not out there 8 hours either.
Yeah, last summer, that's a prime thing to say, because last summer I took my little niece and we went out and went up by combine, pulled bottom bouncers, and she was so bored. And I'm like, okay, so we went back of a bay and I threw out jigs and night crawlers, and she caught as many catfish. And I'm like, you want to go back out there? She's like, no, we're not leaving here. Like that. She didn't care what that fish was.
Right.
She was catching a fish, and she was so bored out pulling bottom bouncers. And we went in that back bay and she was just having a ball. And that's what it's about. Like I told him, it's not about catching a walleye. Maybe we're selfish and greedy and whatever, but that we want to catch walleyes, but that tug on the line is all they're looking for. You know, they just want that tug on the line. So, which is awesome. So 37 years in the business, still going strong. Today, Levon's going to break the news, is your birthday. Levon Walter says, happy birthday, Dave.
Well, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Dave. I'm going to cover you up quick. Unfortunately, this was all I could grab at the time, but happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
So
thank you.
37 years doing this, you've seen a lot of changes in the industry. We talked a little bit about sponsors before the show started, and good, bad, indifferent. I mean, obviously there's a whole, you know, we don't need to get into the forward facing, but what do you think the industry in a whole is looking like?
Well, I don't keep track of the industry like I did when I used to fish in the PWT and stuff like that. So I'm not real aware of what's going and what isn't. I know who helps me and who don't help me, and they've been very good. And some of it isn't industry anymore. It's private.
But with that, like even fishing, the fishing techniques, like the new era of the stuff we're doing, like, I mean, when you invented slow death, that was innovative. You know, now we're looking at, you know, the finishers and the credges, and, you know,
we're not going to go out and search for suspended fish and have a customer come up to the deck and throw a lure over there and try and catch it. That's not what we're going to do.
But I mean, so it's still back to the basics.
It's back to the basics of fishing. You know, I was really, and I still am, I enjoy to use artificial crawlers. I've had a pretty good luck lately with what they called from North Dakota.
But I'm drawing a blank.
I can't think of their name, but if I think of it, I'll let you know.
A plastic?
Plastic.
Okay.
Salmo.
Oh, Salmo.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, those large and small minnows. And actually, I've tried quite a few of the other stuff, and I just can't seem to get the right dance to get the fish going, you know, with them. But they seem to be hitting those pretty good. And then the power baits work too, and the gulp, 4-inch crawler. We still use that.
So you don't like that pinch crawler? I mean, that was kind of
haven't had very good luck with
that. Was kind of invented for the slow death hook.
those guys don't understand. It's not the look of the worm, it's the action of the dance that does it. So having just a little piece of worm that looks like a worm isn't really going to sell the fish. It's not
too stiff.
that. It's the dance.
It's the dance.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
That flopping. Yeah,
right.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But I mean, we don't use slow death a lot anymore. We've gone to using some little blades, propeller blades. We use Max, those little
smiley blades.
Smiley blades are really great, and sometimes when we're dealing with, mostly live bait, I was kind of thinking years ago that maybe live bait sucked because they were swallowing the hooks all the time and stuff like that. But sometimes they're not swallowing the hook as bad as what you really think, compared to some other lures that you're talking about nowadays with the
jig and
wraps and stuff like that. Yeah.
So would you say, I've had this conversation with a few people over the last couple of days, of all the years of doing this, like, we used to pull just, regular old spinner blades. Do you think fish get like conditioned to it? Because I was telling the guy, like back in the day when the flicker shads came out, everybody had to have flicker shads. Yeah. All the fish were biting on flicker shads. Now we're looking, you still have flicker shads out, but there's, open up, you got to have the Walleye Nation Creations Reaper. You got to have, do you think these fish get, or is it back to that confidence thing? Like we got new confidence in something else.
I think it's what you should really do is go out and try and catch fish with as fast as you could if you were in a tournament.
Yeah.
So if you can catch them faster with plugs than you are spinners, great. But sometimes speed doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like right now, go out in Lake Wahi and try and catch something going a little faster than a mile an hour. You're not going to get much. At least I'm not.
Yeah.
But sometimes you got to slow down.
So when you're bouncing,
so it's all about the speed, all three of those things.
So when you're bouncing, even slow death or regular, are you half mile an hour to 0.8? Or I mean, generally that's what you're running.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
we get up 0.9, but lately this year, if you were over those ones trying to go, it wasn't really working. Sometimes you just have to hang over them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I've heard a lot of 0.3 to 0.7s.
Yeah. I was out here a week ago and we had fish on the bottom and we were going slow and they had nothing to do with it. And, no gadgets, plain hook, slow death. We got rid of the Max, put on there. Finally, you just had to just slow down. Just let them drop.
So speed is you from what I'm gathering is speed is probably one of the most critical points of your day is how fast you're going.
Yeah. It's the movement of the fish that makes the difference. But if you catching fish, and that takes a long time to catch fish when you're moving real slow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you got to get some customers filled up. So, you're better off testing yourself and going as fast as you could to get, more bites. And that's how you put fish in the boat.
Yeah. It's all about getting the fish topside.
If you can go faster than what you're fishing, by all means, give it a whirl.
Yeah. Give it a whirl.
Yeah.
My dad always used to say, like, pulling crankbaits, everybody cares about color.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, how does a fish see something go by at 3 miles an hour and go, oh, there's a purple one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bite it.
Right. Yeah. I like red. So everybody out there, red is my favorite color. I'll be the first to tell you.
Yeah. I
like red and, spinner, whatever color.
So do you do different color hooks? Do you do or are you just a regular old plain Jane?
Back to the hooks again. Here we go.
Gold Aberdeen.
There's a reason why we use fine wire, and then obviously it's the lightness of the wire. But number 2 is when we're guiding, those fine wire hooks will get caught and you will not lose your rig. They'll pull on it, and a lot of times the fine wire will just bend. You just take your fingers and pinch them back.
Yeah.
And rebait it. You got to rebait it anyway for the guy or the woman.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's one of the main reasons why I use them. They're bendable, they're flexible. Yeah, you can worry about the point of the hook. Who cares about the point of the hook? If it's sticking you in the finger when you're putting the crawler on, it's sharp enough.
Yeah. No, don't need to sharpen them. That's a good way to put it. So
yeah, but we don't have, we don't have to tie so many rigs.
Yeah.
And I used to think, well, you got a 10-pound test and you got to have, fluorocarbon and just put some 15-pound, 18-pound line and you're able to pull a smaller fish up and get them in the boat, take them off and get a lot more mileage out of your rigs and then tying spinners all the time. So,
yeah. And again,
that's just my opinion.
Rods in the water do not catch fish, right? So,
and there was also something else I was going to say back to the rods that we were talking about. When you've got your 90-degree angle to your fish, it can be off to the side, it can be behind the boat, it can be whatever. But I like to fish my rod a little bit taller in the front, say almost a 45-degree angle if I'm fishing directly pulling it. I do not like to let my rod drop down to where it's level with the reel. You're in trouble.
Yeah.
You've got a big baseball swing coming up to get that fish, but you're better off with your rod up in a high angle and you use your wrist to get that high angle. That way you have some flexibility with that fish. So when that fish hits that bait and starts taking off with it, you can drop that rod tip a little bit, let him turn and let him go off in his way and then pull back as he goes away. And you're right there to reel him in.
That's another great point.
And, when we're fishing off the side, obviously the guys aren't going to 45 there. They're going to be at a 90-degree off the side of the boat, but the ones in the back or what have you, or angles, keep your angle a lot because that's really important.
Yeah. That's a great point on that. And
I see people out fishing all the time and I don't see the rods and they're kind of just fishing and they're, but I always have mine up in the air all the time and I'm going, this is why.
Yeah. And you can see the rod tips for a bite better even at that
easily.
Too.
Know what? When they bite and your rod tip is up high, they don't feel that. Your rod tip is down towards the motor or whatever, that's a lesser angle. They'll feel that right away.
They're feeling that resistance.
It'll be enough slack to when he hits it and the little hook was in there, it popped right out. But if you feel that bite, you've got some room to drop your rod down a little bit and then let him bend the rod.
Yeah. That's a very good point. And I mean, tons of good points. Dave, the wealth of knowledge in your head from all the days on the water, but you don't just stop when the fishing's done. You go guide pheasant hunters. Like, talk a little bit about your pheasant operation. You've been doing that for...
Yeah. I was born and raised here in Pierre, just east of Pierre, and we own a farm over there, and I have some farm ground, and we hunt some pheasants. Nothing big or anything. We pick them up in town and take them out for a pheasant hunt. We're a 3-day hunt and a 3-bird state deal. So
more of the family style hunt. More of the family style,
right.
like we did it back in back in the day when we grew up.
Combining, we got things going on and we stop and we get lined up and there's trucks going by and auger or whatever. And just a farm. Yeah, all it is. So and I enjoy that. I like to see people hunt and get success with their hunting and we work at it all year long to try and make more habitat for more birds, and boy, they look good this year.
I was just gonna say, from what I'm seeing, let's pray that white combine doesn't come and take them out. I mean, that's about the only thing right now that I think we got to worry about is as long as we don't get any big hailstorms. I think we're gonna see a really good pheasant.
Oh,
here.
Definitely.
So, Dave, it's been great having you on. You can find Dave on the internet on his website if you guys are interested in getting a trip with Dave or pheasant hunting or whatever. I'm sure sure there's a waiting list to get with Dave Spaid out there on the water or in the field, but check him out, give him a follow and follow along with Dave. And, I remember being just a little kid up at Sunset looking up at you, and there's Dave Spaid,
Well, it's nice to hear that. And, we had idols too.
Yeah.
Those old guys I worked with, they were my idols. That's why I wanted to do it. And, it's fun.
John Brox, I don't know if it was anybody.
John Brox is one of the smartest fishermen on this planet when he was fishing.
Oh,
I tell you what, he would do things, take a little bitty, tiny little spinner blade and a minnow and a bottom bouncers. He did everything with the bottom bouncer. He would go back there when nobody was catching any fish, go back in the base of a bay and bring his limit in.
Yeah.
He had a nose for where the fish were, and he was quite a remarkable man.
Yeah, old John. If you didn't know him, he was one of a kind. You could find him at the end of the bar with his Christian brothers.
Yep.
We were
why not?
We were me and Sean were around the other day, and we walked in somewhere, and he goes, I go, you got to make sure they have Christian brothers. He goes, I don't think anybody in Pierce drank Christian brothers since John passed.
Yeah.
I think all the Christian brothers is from when John drank it last.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you didn't know John, you walked in the end of the bar. Me and Sean walked in the Outpost on Saturday night, and this couple's there, and they're like, oh my gosh. It just, every time we go somewhere, Sean, it's another John Brock story. Yep. They're all about the same, but it's a different twist on them. So, and you get guys like, Rick Ray. What?
Yeah. Rick and I have been friends for our whole life. Rick just turned 80, actually, a couple 3 days ago. And, he's been with me and going out there with these dogs, and he just enjoys it. And he's great with people.
And I was going to say, I don't think you can find a better guy.
Rick is going to hunt out at our place till he passes away.
Yeah.
I'll guarantee you that. He's always welcome, and he's Rick is I remember Rick has fished every Gov Cup but 2.
And he always used to tell me the first one I wasn't invited to, and
really?
He goes, I didn't get the invite, that's why I couldn't fish the first one. And then there was a year he wasn't doing good, and he came and fished. He fished for like an hour or 2, and I didn't know if we were going to see Rick after that. Like, it was not a good deal. And he's like, Kurt, I'm like, are you sure? And I said, do what you got to do. We'll be here to help you if you're that dead set on it. And then the year was a knee or hip he had replaced, and he was devastated. He goes, that's the only time they can get me in, and I can't believe I argued with them. And and just a good old boy.
He's a warrior.
Yeah. And I think if you took it from him, that'd be the end of it. That's what Rick lives for. And is, he doesn't have, around here, everybody knows who Rick Ray is. Rick Ray is not like you or the John Broxes of the world. And I'm like, Rick Ray, and people are like, I'm like, if you don't know who Rick Ray is, like, you are missing out.
The olden days, it was Rick Ray, Louis Moore. Those guys had the Lund boats, and they were running for Lund Pro Team and everything, and how things have changed. But they were the hot dogs then.
It's crazy. Like, my wife come home the other day, and she's like, do you know a Ron? I go, Ron Seelhoff? And she's like, yeah, some guy said he fished a PWT with Ron Seelhoff. I'm like, oh, yeah, Ron has passed on, but I remember Ron from back in the day. But just names like that we don't want to forget.
We've lost some really great guys.
Yeah.
And I used to travel with Keith Cavias, Gary Parsons, Rick Olson, Norb Wallach.
Yeah.
And we'd go to tournaments and room together a lot of times. And it's sad to see, Rick and Norb both passed away.
Yeah. Ole passed away a couple years ago.
Yeah. And your dad.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and going to the Ole deal, Craig Teal bought Ole's old tiller. And I'll have to get Craig to send me pictures so I can send it to you. And he had it wrapped with pictures, old school pictures of Ole on the side of it. It is a real cool deal that Craig Teal did. And he bought that after Ole died. And he's like, he bought it from his wife and said, I'm going to do something special with this. And it's a pretty special deal that he did with that boat in honor of old Rick Olson. And I mean,
well, back to Slow Death hooks with those guys too. You know, I showed them the spiel on what I did, and we just traveled, shared information, things like that. And look where it went. You know, they asked me if, you know, they could do something with Mustad with Slow Death, and I said, well, make sure you never tell anybody that you invented it. As long as I get the credit for it, that's all I care. And look where it went. You know, those were the guys that made it work, you know.
Well, I mean,
and that's great with me, you know.
Well, I mean, like I said,
everybody has their expertise and stuff, and
it takes a team to get it takes an army to get stuff done. And you know, you put it in the right hands.
Some of the stuff that I learned from those guys were very important. That helped me in my fishing too.
Yeah. And it's
it's all been a great deal.
Some are still doing it. You know, Gary retired last year. His health was going downhill. I hope he's getting better and on the mend, because I mean that's another. I mean, we can talk legends for days, and it's just unfortunately, life goes on, even if we're not here. And I mean, that's the way of the world. And it's, you know, to have you on tonight, Dave, has been awesome. Wonderful. It's been great. Like I said, the wealth of knowledge inside that head, it's incredible. So we appreciate you taking your time. I know you guided all day. You probably got a guide tomorrow, the day after, the day after, the day after. So we won't take much more of your time. I really appreciate you coming up and hopping on the show. And
it's been very fun. Thank you guys. And
thank you.
Thanks, Johnny, for saying hello, and everybody else. Levon.
That's awesome.
That. So
Dave, thank you very much.
Hey, thank you, bud.
All right. Take care. Hey, we'll see you guys at the 50th. It is coming up next weekend.